Yesterday we have discussed creating a hello world application and what is the resource, what is the configuration, and how we can refer the configuration for multiple locations. Like multiple location means we have defined this HTTP listener configuration only once, and we are referring this configuration at two places, at two listener endpoints. If we check this connector configuration, we are referring HTTP listener config, and we go and check the attributes flow. So here also on the HTTP listener endpoint, we are using the same connector configuration. That means it is defined once and we are reusing the same configuration because we want to run on the same host and port but with different resource. That is why we call the connector configurations as global elements. Yeah, we can even create these configurations from global elements tab and go to create and select the configuration, whatever the configuration that we needed to use in the flows. Now today we will discuss about the subflow, private flow, and how we can refer this subflow and private flow by using flow reference. As yesterday's discussion, a flow can have their own exception handling or error handling along with a source endpoint, which will trigger the event flow. And when comparing with the flow, subflow is a chain of message process elements which will execute the flow. But in subflow, there won't be any explicit exception handling. Whenever any exception occurs within subflow, it will be thrown back to parent flow, wherever we are referring the subflow by using flow reference. And also, these subflows cannot have any source point or source endpoint. That means the payload or message that comes to subflow has to be from the parent flow. And there is one more flow called private flow. In private flow, we cannot have the source endpoint. So we cannot explicitly call this private flow as a resource, but we can execute this private flow within the flows by using flow reference as a like subflows. But these private flows will have their own exception handling. What is flow reference? Flow reference is a component in Mulesoft, which is useful to refer the subflows or flows. Yeah, here we can even the flows as well by using flow reference. A flow will have source endpoint, but even though it is having a source endpoint, we can execute this flow by using flow reference as well. Okay, now we'll create a sample subflow. We are creating a new configuration file, naming it as flows. We will name it as main flow. Since we are calling it as main flow, we will add the source endpoint as HTTP listener, and we are selecting the same connector configuration and naming the resource as main. We're adding the loggers. Flow completed. For now, we are going to create one payload. We are setting the JSON payload. Status success. Okay, it's saving it. Okay, we are going to create one more flow. For this, we are giving a name as private flow. Since it is a private flow, we don't want to add the source point. We will just add the loggers. Flow started. Private flow. Flow completed. Here we will set the payload by using transform message. Flow status success. This is a private flow. Now we want to create one more flow, but instead of creating flow, now we want to create a subflow. And if you see this, there is no source point for the subflow, and there is no error handling. Now we will add the log. We will name this as status subflow. We will execute this flow without referring any of the flows. We will run this. So what was the resource name that we have given? It is the main. Yeah. If you see that, we have this response, main flow and success status. Now you can go and check the loggers. Flow started, flow completed. Oh, there is a mistake here. Completed. Okay. Now we are getting the response whatever is defined within this main flow. First, suppose we want to execute a different logic and we want to reuse that logic. In that case, we will define it as a separate flow and that can be referred from multiple flows. For that, we can do, we are going to create one more flow. main flow 2. We are giving the resource name as main 2. Transfer message. And there is a requirement while accessing or while sorry, when we invoke this service or main service, we want to return the flow status, and also there is a employee number. For that employee number, we wanted to append some new number. For example, if we are providing a number as 1, the next number, new employee number, has to be 2. Okay, employee number, new employee number. Yeah, this employee number we are going to receive as a query parameter. So how can we access it? Attributes dot query params dot emp number. Yeah, for example, we are going to receive it as emp now. And to this value, we want to add 1. This is the main flow. If we access the main flow 2, we want to return a +2. This is our requirement. Now we are going to run the flows. If we see here, we are providing the employee number 4, and the new employee number is coming as 5. And if we access main 2, for every employee number that we provide, we are accessing the employee number with 2. 4 plus 2 6, it will become 10. Now if we are not passing the employee number query parameter, then what will happen? Here we are getting an exception. It is trying to append or it is trying to add the number with the null and number that was adding by 2. Because there is no query parameter that we are sending, it is trying to read that value as null. And by default, what was the number that we are adding? 2 in main flow 2. So it was unable to process this expression. We call this as a expressions, data view expressions. Since null cannot be multiplied or it cannot be addition with numeric value, or it cannot even concatenate with string value. For that, what we are going to do, we can handle this situation in two ways. Either we can handle the error, or if the particular employee number is not available, then we have to give the default value if that value is not there. So in those two scenarios, we can make the flow to be executed successfully. Now we are going to handle both the situations in main flow and main flow 2. Here we are going to give a default value, default 0, and for the employee number also we are giving a default 0. Yeah, in main flow 2, instead of handling it here, we are going to give a error handling. We'll do on error. In error handling, we have two scenarios: on error propagate and on error continue. For now, we are going to use the on error continue. Drag and drop that component. We are providing one logger. Using this expression language and providing the value as error. And here we are setting a payload. Transfer message. We are copying the same. Yeah. Instead of success, we are going to represent as failure. And employee number, we are not going to handle this situation since it is a failure. But the end user needs to know what was the error. That is why we need to add an error. In error handling, by default, Mule will throw an error, and that error will be handled by using the keyword error. We are saving this. Since we are sending a request to main2 flow, we can observe this. Flow is main flow 2 status failure and error details. We have just given the keyword error in error handling, but that error is an object in Mulescope. and it is returning the enter error message. What was causing the issue? We can see error type is a expression identifier and namespace is mule. In mule 4 we have these two like error type dot identifier and also name. By using this mule expression error, it is a mule expression error. And what is the error? You call the function plus with these arguments null and number, and it also suggests what it is expecting. Either you can pass an array, date time or period time, number and number. That means the combination. It is accepting two parameters with this combination, number and number, or maybe you can pass string and string. Like okay, now we'll do. We are going to access the main flow one without query parameter. Since we have given the default value as 0 whenever there is no query parameter, the default value provided is 0. 0 plus 1 will become 1. This is how we can handle the errors at flow level and also exception level, error handling. Now we want to refer the subflows based on some conditions. Okay. For example, while running through the flow, main flow, if the employee number is greater than 10, then we want to access or execute the subflow. If it is less than 10, then we want to execute this private flow. But it is a reusable component. That means it can be accessed from main flow or main flow 2. That is why we have extracted it as separate logic or separate flow. To handle that, we are going to use a choice condition or choice component. What is that? Here we have employee number. To check that, we are going to use this expression payload dot emp number is greater than 10. There is a flow reference component, drag and drop that, and here we can choose the flow name, which flow we want to execute. Status subflow if it is greater than 10. here we are going to use another flow reference, and here we want to execute this private flow. In main flow 2 also we are going to use the same. But here we want to execute this whenever it is greater than 20. Flow reference. When it is greater than 20, we want to execute the subflow. Here what is happening? We are trying to execute or invoke the service, main service, and it is throwing some error, trying to output second root while writing XML. We need to go to this flow. Which flow it was trying? Private flow. We'll go to private flow. Since it is an XML output that we are trying to produce, and it is having no root tag or main tag, it is trying to throw an error. We'll provide the tag name as flow details. Even we need to check the status of flow. So in XML, root node is a mandatory. Without root node, it will not produce the output. It will throw an error. We can even save this error. Now we can see it is producing a output in XML with flow from private flow and status is success. We'll try to add a query parameter value. What was the query parameter that we have accessing in flow? EMP number. EMP number. Now we want to give it as 12 and observe it. So whenever the value is 12, it is going to get the response from subflow. This we are defining by adding a choice condition in flow, and we are executing this flow dynamically. We are not going and doing a change for every request. And now we will try to run the main flow too and give an employee number 12. Then what will happen? Even though it is EMP 12, we are still getting the response from private flow, because in main flow our business logic is different. Whenever it is greater than 20, then only we want to go and execute the statements or components from the subflow only. So this is how we can create a reusable logics or reusable flows by using subflows and private flows. So this private flow do not have a source, but we can have an exception handling for this one flow. That we can do. Here we need to, for example, we want to add an employee department. Based on the employee department number, we want to give a employee department name. For suppose department name. Here we can use the if and if else statements within data. If we can do this by using vars dot dept number equal to 1. If the department number is 1, then we are going to call it as communications department. For everything else, we are going to use it as health department. Okay. Along with this name or the value that we are deriving, we want to give a concatenation with the default var start department by default we want to give it as a communications department, health department, but instead of adding that every time, we are storing it in a variable and concatenating with the value. I will do one thing. we will use this in subflow also, and we'll see how it is handled. Since in this private flow and subflow, it is expecting two values, where's the department number and DEPT. So these two variables needs to be defined before accessing up these flows. For that, we are going to use data whip or transform message and create the variables. So we can even create the variables by using set variable components. Okay, but instead of deriving it by using set variable, we are going to make use of transform message and derive the variables. In the transform message, beside payload, click the plus icon, select the drop down and select variable DEPT, and we want to assign a string value department, and along with the DEPT we want to create one more variable DEPT. Now for DEPT now we want to access it from input request attributes dot query params dot DEPT number. In main flow 2 also we will define the same variables, variable DEPT, but here instead of providing a department we want to give the name as class. DEPT number attributes dot query param dot DEPT number. But in main flow 2 service, instead of accessing it as a DEPT num, it is expecting department number, and even the DEPT also wants to be accessed from attributes. Query params dot DEPT name. Where I have saved the changes. We will run the first service. Yeah, instead of doing it here, yeah, in Postman we can check the history. What are the previous requests that we have submitted? In main service, we are providing employee number, and in response, we are receiving the response with, along with flow, status, and department name. Here it is saying health department. Okay. Now we can provide a department number to. Here we can check. If it is department number 1, then we will get the responses communications along with department. We will change the value. Okay. Here we are not receiving the response as expected. What is causing the issue? To understand that, we need to run the flow in debug. We'll go to Endpoint Studio, stop the execution of project, add a breakpoint, right click on it and debug project. It is asking whether we want to open the debug mode or not. We'll check how it will show. So debug mode, it is going to give more options. Here we will get the mule debugger window and the flows, and below we will have console, and here we get mule data view expressions that can be run along with mule flows with the breakpoints. Yeah, our application is deployed. Now we want to check, even though department number is 1, the department name is not coming as communications department. Now we are going to send a request and come to Endpoint Studio. Here we have added a breakpoint, so our flow will be stopped here. And now sorry. So if you observe the console, it is executed till the first component. Now in Mule Debugger, we can see this transform message and attributes. What are the attributes that are received? And payload. Payload is not as of now, and no variables. We'll check it later. We are not getting the options to run step by step. Usually we should get that options. We are moving to I'm stopping it. We'll try to debug the project again. Okay. Here we will move to the next step. And here you can observe on the right top corner, there is a next processor and run to the processor and resume. These are the debug options while executing the flow. Next, since our payload.emp number is greater than 10, it is going to execute the status of flow. And it came to status of flow, transform message. Now we want to check where's the department number, what is the value in it. Okay, even though the value is 1, this comparison is not satisfied. Why? Can you explain me? This is double equal. Yeah, double equal is a comparison operator to check whether it is satisfying the condition or not. If you observe this on the right side, it is 1, and the vars.department number is also 1, but it is unable to satisfy the condition, and it is producing a default 1 default value for health. we'll check this condition in evaluate data expression. So there is an option to check the conditions dynamically. Here we can give it var.dvpt number, click on evaluate. So by clicking on evaluate, you can observe the value here. Okay. And what is the data type? It is the data type Java, and it is coming as a string. Now we want to convert it as number. To check the condition, we can use the equal to. You can see that whether it is true or false. True. Now it is true. We will do by removing the as number coercion. The expression is evaluated as false because on the left hand side, whatever the variable that we have, var.dpt number value is string, and we are trying to compare the string value with number, which is always becomes false. So to satisfy the condition, we must do a expression correction as number. Yeah, instead of correcting it here, we can even do a better thing, like wherever we are assigning this DEPT number variable, we can do a coercion. Go to the transform message variable, so DEPT number as number, and it might give an failure also. Whenever there is no value, then it will fail. For that, we need to check the condition. Before that, we will proceed as it is, and then we can see. Save all changes. Now we can see that it is not enclosed in double quotes, the value. That means it is a number data type. Yeah, after the transform message, we can check the payload. So here the payload DEPT name is coming as communications department. That means our condition is now satisfied. After executing the subflow, it is again the thread is coming back to the parent flow, since the subflow is executing as synchronous flow. Synchronous means each and every component will be executed one after the other in synchronous flow. Now we can check the response. It is coming correct. This is for employee number. It is greater than 10. Now we want to check for lesser value. The flow has to execute from private flow. In choice condition, this choice is going to the default route because it is not satisfied with the condition we have provided here. Going to the private flow, transform message, flow, sorry, logger, and then final logger. Okay, this is our main flow. Now we want to test this same scenario with main to flow. So our pointer came to main flow 2. Yeah. Now we can see cannot coerce null to number. What is happening here?
That's number. Department has number.
Yeah, department has number, but why is it failing?
Null number.
Null. Which value is null? This DEPT number, whatever the query parameter DEPT number value is not available. Hence, that will become a null value. And we are trying to convert that null to number by giving this expression as number. As is a type coercion. Coercion means we are trying to convert from one data type to another data type. That is a type coercion. Okay. Now we will need to make a correction. Instead of providing the query parameter DEPT now, we need to provide the DEPT number. And you can even observe it. After there is an error in this expression where DEPT number, this flow is throwing an exception and going into the error handle since we are catching the exception. Okay. Main flow 2 is failed. We want to provide the department number. Send another request. Come to flow. And now this transform message has passed successfully. Payload.employee number is less than 20 and going to private flow. Here, what is happening here? You call the function plus plus with string and null. Okay. Here you need to observe the difference. We got an exception within main flow. Where we are referring the flow reference. Here we want to catch the exception within this private flow. We will go to design perspective. In private flow, we are going to add on error continue. Logger message. Private flow failure error. Now I am going to run the same flow, but now we are handling the exception within the private flow itself. Next step, next step, next step. We got an exception and it is thrown to the private flow itself because we are handling the exception within the private flow. Now, after adding the exception handling within private flow, it is no more going to the main flow exception handling because we have provided a on error continue within the private flow. Now we can see the response. Now the response is coming from private flow failure. Earlier the exception was from main flow. Now we want to execute the subflow. For subflow, the department number must be greater than 20. We are going to give 25. Sorry, employee number should be greater than 20. Observe carefully. Here we are going to call the subflow. But subflows won't be having any own exception handling. And this transform message is throwing an error because of expression failure. Since it is not having any exception handling, that exception will be thrown back to the parent flow. Parent flow means wherever we are going to call this subflow by using flow reference. And it is throwing back. And here this exception is going to be handled within the main flow exception handling. That means parent flow exception handling. If we now observe it, the response is coming from main flow failure response. This is failure scenarios for handling the private flow and subflow with one exception handling and with parent exception handling. Now we will provide a valid scenario. In our previous case, what was causing an issue? You call the function plus plus with arguments, string, communications and null. What was coming as null? We will go to the flow within this subflow. Here, communication is the static value, and after that we are concatenating or plus plus using the vars.dept. This dept was coming as null. So to know this value, we need to go to the main flows and check the variable dept. Dept is deriving from dept name. So we need to pass a new parameter dept name We will give it a scientist or whatever the department that we want to name, some innovative name. We'll send a request. Yeah. While executing the flows in debug mode, if we don't want to execute every step or every message processor, we can add multiple debugger points or breakpoints. And for example, this is a choice condition, and within subflow we want to execute the transfer message directly, and after that we want to stop the flow. So here, instead of going step by step next to processor, we will use the resume. Click on resume. So it will take you directly to the next breakpoint if there are no errors until the point. Now we can check the payload. Here, communication scientist. We are going to complete this process and see the response. So this department name, we are making it as dynamic by providing a query parameter. If we don't want the scientist, it should be class, communications class. Then we will send a request. Yeah, now we want to give this name as, instead of employee number 25, we will give it as 50 and send a request. Yeah, now we don't want to stop the process at each point. Execute it. So now we are getting a response from private flow, and the department name is communications class. This is how we can make the reusability of flows or business logic, and we can derive the attributes or variables before accessing or making use of them. That is how we can use these concepts: flow, subflow, private flow, and exception handling. Yeah, that's for today.